So our perspective is through the pandemic has been very much working for end users, occupiers. This is a photo from probably last April. This is 1,000 office chairs waiting to be shipped out from one of our clients' head office buildings out to their staff working at home. And I thought it was quite a striking image a year ago that captured the scale of the change. And what a lot of people sort of quickly realised was that 1,000 office chairs is never going to come back in to the office. It's gone. People are using them at home. They're quite happy, and that obviously has quite major implications. Some of the people we've been working with over the past year, sort of mainly in the financial tech sector and the energy sector. I haven't put on here, but Microsoft actually are a big client of ours as well. And all of them have been through the same sort of process of thinking. First of all, there was the immediate reaction about, making offices safe, setting up for social distancing, supporting home working. There was a bit of a period of thinking about a new kind of office that was quite exciting. Then there was a period, probably sort of last autumn, where people were starting to ask themselves whether they even needed as many buildings. And then there was a period when they expected everyone to come back. So, there was a moment when I think we perhaps got a bit overexcited by vaccines, thought things would be back to normal in January. So there was a lot of rapid change. And now I think this latest lockdown has given everyone the opportunity to really start thinking about the longer term. So a couple of examples, I suppose, at different scales of the sort of work we've been doing. This is a sort of tactical piece of work. So, a client who's thinking about how do I, I've got office buildings full of desks and I'm expecting, fewer people to be using them in future. How do I respond to that? So, we've been doing a lot of this kind of thing where desks are taken out, spaces are switched up, they're made more flexible. And I think really importantly, they're made more rich in terms of functionality. So a greater range of activities supported, and the idea of more collaborative space, more flexible space within the traditional office building. And, in some cases that's being done in a zone or a floor. This is a vision that we've sort of developed with one of our clients, which is, more on a building level. So the idea of rethinking the whole building, moving from the traditional office to the idea of a collaboration hub with a real focus on hospitality, making a great experience for visitors and for staff. And I think really importantly, on a bigger scale, this idea of a wider mix of uses. So, this building would have, at least 2 different catering areas, a cafe, a restaurant. It would have great hospitality spaces, sort of hotel style event and meeting areas, co-working space. Potentially in some areas it might even have space for staff to stay over, roof terraces, gyms, all those kind of things, which in a way start to create the idea of a sort of city within a building. And part of the sort of implication of that is the idea of changing the meaning of the office a bit. We do a lot of work with NatWest on the left-hand side, their current head office at the top of Bishopsgate. And I've always been really interested in their original head office, which is the National Provincial Bank building at the bottom end of Bishopsgate. It's now called the Gibson Hall, and it's used as an event space. And I've always thought that, it was a wonderful example of that sort of idea of the 19th, early 20th century head office as a sort of symbolic urban space, quite public, with a huge banking hall, and the kind of work aspect of it being secondary. And I think that's perhaps what sort of big city office buildings are going to start to move towards. A couple of projects we've finished in the last sort of couple of years and are working on, I think, tie into this theme. So this one here was a project for Tesco at their campus up in Hertfordshire. So creating a new building on what used to be a car park in the centre of a campus. And the idea of creating a heart to the campus and a social hub. This was an interesting building because at the time it was people found it a bit hard to categorise. And, even when we were entering it for awards and that sort of thing, the question was asked, well, is it really a workplace building? Because actually there's very little desk space in it. It's got, touchdown collaboration space. There's a shop, there's test kitchens, there's a gym, there's an event space. It's not somewhere you sit at a desk all day, but of course now, that's what we are starting to think of the future office being. And importantly, it has a symbolism. So it's now the place where if you work for Tesco and you're going to visit their head office, this is the building you come to because it hosts all those visitors from around the country. It had a whole landscaping piece that went with it to enrich the site, and you can see the mix of functions, events, retail, social, all in one space. The event space on the right hand side, the test kitchens where they develop all the delicious ready meals that we've all been eating a lot more of this year. So that's a building that we finished last year that I think ties into this theme. And one that we're working on now that's on site is Santander Digital Hub. This is in Milton Keynes. Again, this is on a car park site. So this view would be looking roughly from the station in Milton Keynes across the plaza. And Santander's existing office is behind this. So we're building a new building that's, again, a bit of a city in a building. So the whole ground floor of this building is pretty much public. It's got restaurant, retail, gym, nursery activities, and we've designed the ground floor quite carefully so that it is permeable. People can walk through it, and it's linked through with the sort of improved underpass through to the station and then onto the city. And so it builds on a lot of those themes you've been seeing in co-working with the sort of food hall market type space on the ground floor. The idea of mixing up circulation and event presentation spaces to create more of an experience. And then, the rooftop running track, inevitably the health and well-being and the roof terrace linked to a sort of rooftop cafe space. This has been an interesting building in so far as it's on site now. It's just coming out of the ground. And, as it's coming up, we're already in the process of rethinking how it's going to work, making it even more flexible and even more sort of engaging, I think, as an experience. So a few thoughts to sum up. First of all, what's happening? Hybrid working is definitely happening. I know there's one or two businesses who've said we want everyone back, but everyone that we work for is looking at, on average, 3 days in the office, 2 days at home. Segmenting staff, some will be in no days a week, some will be in 5 days a week. Virtually everyone we're working for is reducing space, and it's all about better space. So moving out of lower quality buildings into smaller buildings that are better quality, perhaps more characterful as well, and more centrally located. The idea of a wider range of functions, and obviously the question of what fills the gap in the urban context. If every major business is reducing their space by 40%, what does that mean? It could mean that the City of London, sees a wave of startup companies that couldn't previously afford city space moving in, which I think would be fantastic. There may be some conversion to resi. And I think one of the important questions that people are starting to think about, and we've been talking about on the NLA work panel this year, is how does this future office support the urban economy? Because I think one of the dangers of creating a city in a building is, if you're replicating all those functions, you don't need to engage with the streets around you. And I think it's really important that occupiers do draw on the city that they're in. And I've highlighted the last word there as food, because I don't know about anyone else, but one of the things I'm really missing about the office is getting into town, eating Shoreditch street food, going out to lunch. And I think it's, I think in the future office, people don't want to go in and eat from a staff canteen. So how can occupiers, bring, the best of that urban economy into their space and make the office experience an urban experience, as well as making the city around them, continue to benefit from the activity of work that I'm sure will continue to happen in city centres, for as long as they're around. So that's all from me. Thanks, everyone.